Okay, so here we are. We're at the corner of Regina and Marshall in Waterloo, and I'm going to show you what we mean by the Walk the Block challenge. Shorten the block because it's actually more prevalent down this block, so try and keep it so that the sun's not in the way. Go ahead. Okay, so be careful when crossing the street for sure. Stay on the sidewalks because you don't want to be trespassing. But the Walk the Block challenge is to go down the street, starting at Regina Street, and take a look at all the units, such as here across the street. Now you notice they got railings, so we're just going to focus on this side of the street for now. Because as you can see down this side of the street, it's mostly all newer apartment buildings, so they're usually to code because they were only built recently. So we're not as concerned with those right now. For the demonstration purposes, we're looking at these houses here on this side. So as you see, the first one, railings appear to be in order, as with the second and the third. So again, these are showing that there's responsible landlords out there that are doing their part. They're playing by the same rules as everybody else. They have lawyers that they can get access to. They can get house inspections. And our point is they should be made to get a house inspection, especially if they're putting up as a rental. Because it has to be in a legal condition, which means minimum standard. Minimum standard means to have the building code. And building code comprises of structure, fire, and electrical. They're non-exclusive, which means you can't separate one from the other. They are all part and parcel of the building code. And we will post on a web page or YouTube, whatever, links to the information for a local area anyway. So as you can see, so far, well, that's not really a railing, but, and this one here. But then as we come up to these properties here, something stands out, starts to stand out. And these have rental licenses. 49A has stair railings going up the stairs only, but not across the top. It's required to have one across the top as well. 49B has no railing whatsoever. What's the next one? Again, telltale sign. Doesn't meet code. Look at the fencing in the back, falling over. Don't know if you can see that because I can't see through the thing here, but 53A is currently for rent. 53B looks like it's occupied, but again, only one stair railing, not complete. Totally not complete. And then you come across another property. This is Grand River Property Management, as far as I know. Only because Denise's daughter lives in one of them. But as you can see, totally to code. Kept, well kept. Trees aren't diseased. Fencing perfectly done. Got railings, even the one beside, I'm not sure if that's Grand River too. But the point that we're trying to make is that these are people that have to deal with the same regulations, the same conditions as every other landlord. So why is these guys up here allowed to skirt the system? And more importantly, once they become made known to the region or city or province, all of which are equally responsible to make sure that they are to minimum standard, especially if they're putting a business occupancy license there to say that okay, anyway, just to keep this up, that's Brighton Street there, so I'm gonna focus on what I'm saying right now. So we'll turn it around. Oops, sorry. Okay, so again, the point is, I'm just gonna look at the camera and hope this gets me. The point is that they're giving away these rental licenses as an assurance that these places that receive a rental license are the minimum standard. They even go through the motions of saying it goes through a municipal enforcement inspection, it's to go through an electrical inspection and a fire inspection before it even is granted a license. What we have found out is that they actually only do it once, the first time, and apparently it's not done after that. Even though they have to renew every March 31st every year, it's caused nothing but problems. They say it's for the tenants, but they keep the tenants in the dark. When tenants try and get information in order to proceed and protect ourselves, they interfere. They run interference, and they seem to be working on behalf of the miscreant landlords. I guess they're playing both sides of the system because the law is clear. It has to meet minimum standard before it can be deemed a lawful rental. And this idea that they're selling people with these rental licenses is that you have nothing to worry about, when in fact we have found out that it is much more than that. So we're asking people, we're challenging people to come and take pictures of these properties and send them to the municipal enforcement and say they need, and also the housing minister, and demand that they have a provincial level inspection, because it's clear they do not meet code. We will be posting the Ontario Building Code on the website. Do a link on our YouTube page so people can get it. Let me just make sure the sun's not there, so people can download it and look for themselves and ask the question, what's your definition of racketeering? And what is the city of Waterloo and the province and legal aid up to? Because they always seem to have the same units go in again and again and again. And if we're talking building code, when it comes to a multi-unit dwelling, I'm going to show one of these new ones because, of course, they're probably the code and everything, right? So here's a new multi-unit dwelling. You have a multi-unit dwelling. If Unit 1 complains, they sit there and claim that they only have to look at Unit 1. When in fact it's the building, it's the building code. So the building contains all units. You can go to landlord tenant, you'll find out that they go not only for the same unit, for the same landlord, for the same issues with different tenants, which means they didn't self it and make it legal before they rented it again, creating more business for themselves, by the way. But they sit there and claim that they only have to inspect the unit of the person who's complaining. So you might have 10 different units in that 12-unit building complaining about their units, and they go in there and only inspect the units, not the building, when the unit is the building is comprised of all the units. So you complain about one unit, you're to inspect the building, right? The other thing too is that they don't solve these issues. As soon as the tenant is moved out, it's like it never happened. So anything you brought forward, any work orders and that cease, and they get it ready for the trap for the next person, unsuspecting tenant who thinks that they're being looked after and that their safety is assured. Minimum standard is required by not just rentals. They're required by every person who owns property in the province of Ontario. And if you want to know why they're worried, heck, let's start with provincially owned buildings like nursing homes and places of care like that. Guaranteed they're not going to pass the muster either, because they did nothing to keep them in code either. That's why they have a whole system that's there to do nothing but suppress the truth. And the truth is scarier than you think. So anyway, I know our building isn't the worst, and that's not the point. The point is that this landlord knowingly entered into a contract with us for a tenancy agreement, which was illegal. He knew it was illegal, or he ought to have known, and he assured us that it was legal. He acted improperly. He hid everything for 2 years, nullifying the contract for the term, even though we honored every term of our contract. Promises made as far as fenced-in backyard and that, he just promised whatever he wanted, because at the end of the day, he just sat there and said, I changed my mind, not going to do that, thinking he has a right to, and when it was already negotiated. So, you know, business, I guess, eh? No, it's not business. It's called suppression of people's rights. It's called playing with security of person. Because here I tried to get away from this, and 2 years later it snuck in again, because that is their modus operandi. They are operating as, well, it appears they are operating openly as a racketeering front, a manner of protecting people who break the law and helping them to get around it. Because it's about managing the law, not about actually upholding it, right? If they upheld it, then, you know, they'd lose a lot of business, wouldn't they? Easy solution. Every person who wants to rent a unit or any kind of rental in Ontario must have a provincially certified inspection performed, which says as of that date and that time it met minimum standard for building code, which is comprised again of structure, electrical, and fire, non-exclusive. Once they bring that in, then they could be licensed. That way the municipal enforcement and everybody doing the checks and balances would be a second layer of defense. Because again, you're not allowed to charge rent on a unit unless it is a lawful rental. And without a rental license, it is not a lawful rental. And you can apply to have an abatement of rent for every penny of rent you paid there if it was an unlawful rental. Or apparently if there's even a portion of your unit is not habitable, which is unlawful. So let's say you have a 3-floor unit. If your basement is uninhabitable and it's unlawful to collect rent for it, which means for the time that it remains like that, if they don't follow the rules, which is give them notice, they have a certain time to fix it. If they don't fix it, then it's breaking the rules. So if that happens, like I said, you can apply to have what's called an abatement of rent for 1/3 of the rent. If it's 1/3 of the unit that's being affected and it's deemed uninhabitable, you can get up to 1/3 of the rent back. At least ask for it as an abatement, because it's covered by law. That's what they don't want you to know. So anyway, we invite people to help the City of Waterloo Bylaw Department understand that it's their responsibility through Residential Tenancies Act section 224(1) and 224(2) that once they are given a written notice of somebody needing to have their unit inspected, they must inspect it. And they get to decide which kind of inspection it gets, but if it shows signs that it doesn't meet the minimum standard, then they must show that. Anyway, we invite you to see the rest of our videos, especially the one where they did the fake municipal inspection. They're right now trying to arrange doing another one officially, because they can't even issue a work order because he only took notes. He did not make an official inspection. That was there just to solely provoke us, using police as a means of intimidation and provocation. Again, they're supposed to have somebody in place that assists people with disabilities. They instead set up a situation where people get made angry, and the minute you get frustrated and raise your voice, especially if you have a PTSD or something like that, which they continually provoke, they say that's a reason not to deal with you. When in fact what a facilitator is supposed to do is, when you go to the counter, if you're disabled and there's a problem with the person you're communicating with, you're supposed to be able to have them call somebody who comes down, who's specially trained to help facilitate you to be heard and to be cooperated with in the process, not interfered with, not given the cold shoulder, not put in communicado and having to argue for everything, including having to write the actual part of the legislation down before they came. Well, I mean, here you go. Even Jody Wilson-Raybould couldn't get through Prime Minister Trudeau's assistance, and she was the Attorney General and Justice Minister at the time. So what chance do we have, right? There's a question that needs to be answered too. When are they legally notified? When you send them an email? When you write them a letter? When you go in person? When you send them a video if you can't write it down? It's sent to their by regular post email, but for some reason, oh well, we didn't get that, or that's not a legal notification. Yeah, right. Keep playing games. Anyway, we're done. We invite you to come along with us. We're going to go photobombing. We're going to tell everybody who has a rental license, if you have things that are not right there, and it looks like it's not the code, you must give your landlord written notice. and give them at least, I think it's 14 to 28 days. I'd say 30 days after, if you're still having problems with it, take pictures, post it up like we did. Do a video on YouTube, come over, link it to us under the comments or whatever, and put a link there to your page. And we'll all put it together, and that way we'll band together to stop this together. There's only one way to, and Mr. Premier, we invite Premier Doug Ford out here and Karen Redmond from the region and the mayors of Kitchener and Waterloo. And bring your disability coordinators with you. You need to use this as an opportunity to introduce everybody, these people that are supposed to be in place in order to assist us with Accessibility Ontarians with Disabilities Act and Human Rights Code and everything else. Especially a UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, also known as UNCOPD, PRD or something like that. Anyway, links on the page. And Queen Elizabeth, if you're not doing this, they're doing it in your name. One way or the other, you need to speak up or put up, because you know what? Your facade is wearing thin. I am notwithstanding. In your mind, you don't know me. You're about to find out, because I'm not standing with this anymore. Your gig is up. Time to expose the real human rights abuser. Canada, eh? Have a nice day. And we invite you to join the protest. We invite you to join the real news. And open house. We have an open yard here at 100A Marshall Street. So until the landlord, we haven't heard anything from the landlord yet. We're properly served and everything, including the city. It is now an illegal property. He hasn't cashed the last check yet, because that would be illegal, right? Anyway, it's been put to him that way. So until this has got a rental license, it's not legal, which means it wasn't legal beforehand either. So anyway, we're inviting people to come out and join us. Come and see what the situation is. It's not as bad as most places, but what's here is damaging enough, especially when you find out what their attitude is. I will be posting some of their conversations too, especially the part where they say it's not their job. Anyway, that's of concern. So join with us. Challenge is walk the block between Regina and I forget the name of the other street. Anyway, thank you.